Next, we'll take up House Bill 4332, Rep. LaFave, allows the use of airbows for hunting in certain situations. This bill passed out of Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation Committee last year. We do have the representative here to testify. The representative has received permission to bring this in from the sergeants. He cannot pass it around.
Apparently the Judiciary Committee isn't as fun as the Natural Resources Committee.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Howell and Chairman.
1 second, Representative. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Turek. I live in Traverse City, Michigan, and I'm here in support of this bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Chairman Howell of the Natural Resources Committee for not only taking up the bills, but also letting me hand them out. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The reason why I'm here today is because individuals with a disability cannot, under Michigan law, go bow hunting in our bow hunting season. And I think that is blatant discrimination and against the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we need to rectify that situation. I, in the Natural Resources Committee, had my crossbow with me. I use a particular brand of crossbow that's very expensive, very helpful, useful, but it's inherently a two-handed weapon. So individuals that have full use of only one of their hands, they can't use crossbows or regular bow and arrows. That's where the airbow is useful. With one hand, an individual with a disability and somebody without a disability can operate this weapon. Basically, you plug the CO2 tank in. It only takes one hand. You cock the crossbow, which takes one hand. And you can load the weapon, which would take one hand. And you can aim and shoot the airbow with all one hand. And so for individuals with a disability that only has full use of one hand, this weapon makes it possible for them to go into the woods. And why that's important is during firearm season is November 15th through the end of November, 15 days. Bow season is almost 4 months long. So not only is it on its face discrimination against people with disabilities, now it adds another element because bow season's earlier in the year, and if you're wheelchair bound and only have full use of one hand, now we're saying, oh no, you can only go in the woods when there's snow. So if you've been wounded serving our country in Iraq or Afghanistan or any other theater, and you're wheelchair bound and only have full use of one hand, we're telling you you can't hunt. And I don't think that's fair. And I think that this, while it's only useful and going to be used for a small handful of individuals in the state, I don't think that should dissuade us from helping those individuals, some of whom have given enormous sacrifices that we can sit here and vote on legislation today. With that, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee for allowing me to speak this morning. Again, my name is Chris Turek from Traverse City. I'm a post-9/11 veteran myself. Luckily, I am not disabled. One of the great things about airbows and the airbolt technologies with airguns is the lack of recoil and the lack of report that actually comes from these. So for veterans that are suffering from PTSD, that is a huge consideration for them. And for me, when I got out of the military, even though I'm not disabled, I had a lot of issues with firearms when I got out, for other personal reasons that we could probably talk about offline. For me, I actually had stepped away from hunting for quite some time because of these issues. But when I moved back to Michigan, when I got out of the military, Michigan was one of the very first states to allow for big bore airgun hunting during the regular firearm season. That actually brought me back into hunting. And so with that, when I heard about this bill that came through the representative, at first I really wasn't for it. I grew up an archery hunter, and there's a lot of practice and skill that goes into archery hunting. And at first I was really not for this technology. But more I looked into this and looked at the opportunities for this to open up the woods, just like how you just mentioned. October 1st, I'm from Traverse City, Michigan, and we've had snow since Halloween. So you're looking at what, maybe like a 10-day hunting season if you were in a wheelchair. So I think at that point, I really just got energized about that. And so the reason why I came out of this is because a lot of the stuff that I was hearing from other hunting groups is what got me energized. Two parts of this bill. One, it's really, if you just read through the bill in the actual language, it has two parts. One of it is just to approve bolts and arrows as an approved projectile. So what that means is during the regular firearm season, even myself as an able-bodied hunter, I would be able to use this, and this would open it up for only disabled hunters with a proper approval from a medical professional during the archery season. And so when I heard all the hunting groups kind of getting involved, and I heard a very protectionist standpoint they were taking, I thought to myself, this is definitely, they wanted to have the biggest deer for the biggest antlers to have in their man cave or their she shed. So at that point, I decided, you know what, I really needed to speak up about this. I was hearing some misinformation coming out saying that it's too loud. This has the audible sound of a loud car door slamming, roughly 90 decibels. This is not a supersonic firearm, so when a firearm goes off, usually when the big bang you hear in the woods that all the archery hunters are worried about is because of a sonic boom. The speed of these projectiles that are coming from this, and this is a very important point I want everybody to understand, the exact same velocity as a crossbow. Why that's important is that I hear a lot of incorrect information from some of these groups saying that it's going to be too powerful, it's going to decimate the deer herd population. I've heard that argument. And being that it's the exact same technology ballistically as a crossbow, it's very important to consider that when considering this bill. So my question is that if it's ballistically the same, if we can extend the deer season for disabled hunters, why wouldn't we allow for this technology? Again, Michigan was one of the very first states to allow for big bore airgun hunting during the regular firearm season. We should maintain our position as a leader in outdoor recreation and hunting sports. And I will tell you, being very active in the airgun hunting community, I have dozens of friends in my community that would love to come to Michigan and go hunting with me. And a lot of those guys are going to be disabled veterans, and I would love to honor them and welcome them into my state. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. One question, Rep. Johnson.
The meat of the bill says the department may issue a permit to an individual, and gives all the things. The way I read it, the department may. So if you ever had a department that was anti-hunter, anti-disabled hunter, whatever, they could decide, you know what, we're not going to allow them to do this. Why not say the department shall issue a permit?
So that was the bill as I originally introduced it. The previous DNR director and the governor and I had a deal, and that is the language that you are reading now. I do not have that deal with the current governor or the current DNR director. So and my understanding is they're still opposed. So I would be happy to change that to shall if we can get the governor's signature. But under the previous administration, we couldn't.
So the DNR right now, as it's written, is opposed?
I believe that is true, although I believe that the folks that support the DNR, MUCC, is considering changing their position. So when MUCC changes theirs, I'm sure the DNR will change as well.
Okay. It seems
As
strange to
per
me that the
usual.
DNR would be opposed to legislation that essentially just gives them more options, because they're not forced to do anything. They're just allowed to.
Representative,
But
if
I'll
you
save
can,
that question for them.
If you can explain to me the DNR's position on any bill, please give me that formula. I'll be thrilled to see it.
Rep. Berman. No? Okay. Chris, you got a video. It's going to be my request that we send that on to the committee due to time constraints. And I don't see any other questions right now, so thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Mr.
And are you
Chairman.
able to share that video with the committee in some manner?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again.
just have one individual who would like to speak in opposition. Tom Wanless, DNR. Is Tom here? And you don't, did you intend to speak or no? Oh, I have Craig Burnett, DNR, but he did not indicate. So, okay. We just ask that you keep it to 5 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. The administration remains opposed to the legislation, as we were in the Natural Resources Committee. With me is Lieutenant Tom Wanless. He can help answer any technical questions, but really what it comes down to is we believe this weapon better aligns with a firearm and should be able to be used in a firearm season and not an archery or bow season. It's really right where we're at. It's really quick on our explanation, so we're happy to take any questions.
Rep. Johnson?
As I, talked to the bill sponsor, this is just allowing the DNR the option. They may issue the permit. They don't have to. So you run the DNR, what's the harm in passing this bill? You can decide we're not going to do the permit.
Well, I don't run the DNR, but happy to just say it really comes down to an alignment of where we actually feel the weapon should be used. It's not about the may or shall. It comes down to we believe it's more aligned with a firearm and not an archery or bow. So that's where we're trying to keep it consistent and properly clarified on what type of weapon it is.
So what should someone in northern Michigan who is wheelchair bound, what are their options for hunting? When the snow's on the ground, they can't get out there, are we not limiting what they can do?
You're limiting their ability, if they're wheelchair bound, you're limiting their ability, if there's snow on the ground, to be able to utilize a wheelchair. Our belief still is that it is, this is more aligns with the definition of a firearm and what a firearm is. Crossbow technology, as some of you may be aware, is really leaps and bounds over the last few years, and they've become a lot smaller, a lot more compact, and a lot more versatile to be able to be used single-handedly.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. LaFave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's the position of the DNR that individuals with a disability should be relegated to 15 days during firearm season, as well as 4 days of the Liberty hunts, if they can't use traditional or crossbow.
Keep in mind that you still also have a muzzleload season, and you also have early and late seasons as well, too, in which firearms can be utilized.
Let me.
Rep. Berman, a quick question.
Yes, thank you. I guess what's the main reason you consider this more in line with a firearm rather than a bow?
If you look at a bow or even a crossbow, the projectile is expelled by a string. This is expelled by air gas spring. If you look at the definition of a pneumatic firearm, it talks about a BB or pellet, currently, talks about a BB or pellet expelled by air, gas, or spring. A firearm says a projectile expelled by gas. So we're trying to keep the two separated. String would be archery tackle, something else would be classified as a firearm.
So it wouldn't be off of shooting arrows that, let's say, a bow, crossbow, this weapon here all shoots arrows. Does that, or is it the noise? I mean, why is there, again, I'm not a hunter. Why is there a firearm versus a bow season? Is it to do with noise? Why limit? I don't, what's the rationale for that?
That's a historical thing. It's beyond me at this time to be able to answer. Originally, historically, it's been firearm seasons, and then with the, and again, I don't have dates on this at this time. But as archery equipment became more popular several years back, then they opened up an archery season for them. Same thing happened with a muzzleload season. They became popular. We established a muzzleload season to provide opportunity for people who want to hunt with just muzzleload equipment.
I mean, I guess I'll, because of time constraints, can follow up. Thank you.
And you can follow up if necessary afterwards. I don't see any other questions right now, so thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.